Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Hello. Managing mega events. Here comes a great tool, a great approach how to do this even better by using great and future technology. So here we are. We're talking about future tech. We're talking about AI. The future of destination marketing. Is AI taking over? That's the next, the big question in the next 40 minutes or so. And before we give a simple yes or no, and we try to do so, of course, we have to discuss a lot of things. What is a DMO? That's what we're discussing for decades here in this room. Is it a destination marketing organization, a destination management organization, probably event management organization, as we learned today, or will it become a data management organization? I don't have a clear answer, but we will find out. And the next question is, that's new one, what is the role of AI and of future technology? What are core challenges? What are the great chances of using it? Where to use it best? And what's next in the field of future tech? And that's what we want to discuss within the next 38 minutes, I would say. And that's a tough timing, and I'm happy that we can start with a proper introduction to the wide field of future tech and AI by Professor Dr. Wolfram Hoepken. He's the professor and director of Institute for Digital Transformation at the University of Applied Science in Ravensburg-Weingarten, Germany. And Wolfram is in this field for a few decades already, and he knows what he says, and he has a wide view into the future of travel tech for destinations, and I'm happy he's here. Wolfram, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk, for the kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me for this presentation. Is the presentation already? So in the next couple of minutes, I will give an overview of the topic of AI in tourism, and especially for destination, the current status and the future trends. But before doing this, I would like to start with the question, what does AI think about AI in tourism? And that's the picture AI generates. So we see a couple of good things. We see there is a robotic hotel concierge, there is travel assistant, there's recommendations, there is VR equipment. So it looks good, a little bit eclectic perhaps, but overall it's fine. But also we see there is a robot wearing VR equipment, which of course doesn't make much sense. And there we see that there are of course some limitations of AI, and there are some strengths and weaknesses, and we would like to dig into more detail into this in this next couple of minutes. The first strength is the flexibility and the dynamics. So let me briefly explain how AI works. So the computer is not exactly told what it is doing than in the past, but the computer now learns from data. So he learns autonomously what he should do in a certain situation based on past data. That's the idea. And the advantage is this is extremely flexible. So you can learn from any kind of data as long as you have enough data. You can solve any problem by this. It's extremely flexible, extremely dynamic. The next point is uncertainty. This is a strength and a weakness at the same time, because the problem is, or the difference is, in the past, the computer came up with a concrete and correct result. This is what we expect the computer to do. But now those new systems, they create a probability of being right or a probability of the answer. So there's some uncertainty. This is the same way as the human brain works. So there's the strength of uncertainty. You can be more powerful, but there's the weakness that you cannot be sure that the result is correct in any case. And the third point is a lack of understanding. At least nowadays, we are talking about weak AI. So this AI has no understanding of the semantics of the meaning. It has no idea what it is doing in the strict sense. So this is a main drawback of current AI systems, which we have to take into account if we use such systems, that you can never be sure whether the output is correct because the system does not know what it is doing. They are quite good because they have lots of data, but they have got no idea of the semantics, at least at the moment. This is, as we all know, ChatGPT. It has tremendous success in a couple of days. The way how it works is quite simple. Again, it takes a lot of data, a lot of amount of text, a text corpus. It learns the different structure of text, the different structure of sentences, and based on this learning, it can then predict or can then answer your question by creating some kind of text. But if we now look back at those two things we discussed before, there's uncertainty. This means the system generates text by simply predicting the most likely next word, not more, not less. But it has no idea what the word is. It has no understanding of the words it is creating. It does not understand your query, your prompt, and it does not understand its own answer. And this, of course, has a consequence. The consequence is the system cannot reflect on whether the result is correct, is accurate or not. This is something you have to do if you use those systems. You have to cross-check whether the output is okay or not. You cannot simply believe into the systems. Let's have look at a couple of examples in tourism. As we have not that much time, I will just browse through this. This is a life cycle, and we can see different approaches which are used for quite a while. They are not absolutely new. So there's customer relationship management, prediction of tourism demand, yield management, dynamic pricing. There's adaptive personalized marketing, predictive targeting, adaptive websites, and so on. This is all this thing in the phase of marketing. In the phase of information search, there's recommender systems, we all might know, dynamic packaging, creation of travel itineraries. This is a quite hot topic at the moment based on generative AI and GPT, large language models. There's prediction of cancellations, no-shows. Airlines are doing this for quite a while, quite heavily, to do some overbooking. In the consumption phase, there's the analysis of the customer behavior, the movement patterns of the customer. There are intelligent, adaptive mobile services, like to avoid overcrowding, for example. There are tourist guidance systems and so on. These are all systems we know. And in the feedback phase, there's customer feedback analysis, so-called sentiment analysis. This is just the big picture, what can be done. Lots of those things are not quite new. They are done for centuries. We started solving these problems by statistical approaches. Then we went on with machine learning, which is the core of AI. Then deep learning, which most of you might know from the word at least. And now lots of those problems are solved by generative AI, like, for example, creation of travel itineraries or such tourist guidance systems. They are heavily using large language models and generative AI at the moment. So we see that this is an evolution, of course, but this is the overall picture, what you can do within a tourism destination where you can use AI. A couple of trends to give you a short overview. Here we can see the first trend is big data analysis, big data analytics. This is not new, but it's still not fully developed because there are lots of data out there. I will just browse through a couple of examples. What we did, for example, this is Lake Constance region. We collected 1.5 million Instagram posts, Instagram photos, grouped them together. Then we can see where are people running around. And we can even analyze in which order they are moving through the destination. So we can deduce movement patterns of the tourists just based on the Instagram photos. Another approach, the same data, there we used those Instagram photos and classified them into the topic, which is shown by the photo, the theme, let's say, and then we aggregated them for each of the destinations, and we came up with a destination profile. So here we see the destination profile on the one side based on the pictures of the customers uploaded on Instagram, on the other side based on the pictures uploaded by the destination itself. And here we can easily see if there is a mismatch between the self-presentation of the destination or the perception by the customer. So do you present a destination in the same way as the customer looks at it by taking corresponding photos? These are quite interesting analysis itself. This is quite astonishing. This is the most far-reaching point what we did. You can even derive personality traits from those Instagram photos. You all might know this big 5 or ocean model, which you can use to characterize people concerning their psychological characteristics. This can be deduced by Instagram photos based on the things which are on the photos, but also how the photos are taken, the color brightness, and so on. You can deduce what is this for a kind of person who took this photo. So you can deduce quite interesting results for your customers in your destination. Or the final one is we did in a Swedish destination, to dig into sentiment in more detail, to look into the emotions which are expressed within sentiments. So they can do a lot of different things. So big data analytics is a trend which you can use for destinations, especially because lots of this data, social media data, big data are out there. They're only waiting to be analyzed, to be used. Another trend, which is now quite famous, we all know ChatGPT, large language models, but the next evolution is already starting. These are so-called AI agents. So the idea is that you don't use the LLM, the ChatGPT directly, but you use an agent, and an agent in the background then uses some kind of large language model or chat service. So we see this can be used for employees, for example, in a destination, to design products, to design services, or it can be used to create marketing content and campaigns. There it is quite heavily used at the moment nowadays, but now you use typically ChatGPT directly, but in the next evolution you will use some kind of agent who puts you the pieces together faster than by doing it on your own using ChatGPT. Or for tourists, like virtual travel assistants, recommender systems, of course, they all use these large language models nowadays. So we see here a couple of small examples, like from Swiss Airline. They have got a travel guide where they mix, so they have some static information which they already have, your flight, your destination, and so on. And then, of course, they add some information they get from a large language model, and then they offer you some suggestions for an itinerary which you could use. So here you can see that the agent uses the large language model in the background, but the employee or the customer uses the agent, which is more intelligent in the sense that it has more information, which needs real-time information, for example, of your flight, and so on. Or quite interesting evolution, there's from Alma, for example, from Slovenia, is one of the famous examples. It's a virtual traveler. It's an AI-generated person which is answering your questions. And in the background, of course, this service uses a large language model, most probably ChatGPT or something similar. But in the front end is not directly the ChatGPT, but it's some kind of agent which is it's a perfect interface to the customer. There are lots of examples out there at the moment. In Berlin, the Deutsche Zentrale für Tourismus is working on something similar. They have just launched this service a couple of weeks ago. So there are lots of different things out there like this. And the final trend, this is not necessarily a trend, but it's more a need. So there's a need for high-quality data and for AI-suitable data, how we could call it. So first of all, it's more than obvious. AI, smart data-driven services, as the name suggests, need data. They need data in high quality. So you as a destination, you have to collect all your data properly and store your data in a high quality. There are new approaches out there which are developed at the moment, like knowledge graphs, for example. There's a huge project in Germany for building a German knowledge graph. There are lots of projects like this out there at the moment. This is a promising approach to provide semantically rich data, not simply data, but data with more semantics, with more meaning behind. And another important approach at the moment is data spaces like Gaia X, for example, which is the data ecosystem for data exchange and interoperability. These are approaches out there to better store your data. And the quite interesting approach or trend at the moment is, if you imagine that now your customer is no longer using a search engine, but he might use a large language model to find information. So you don't have to do search engine optimization, but now you have to do AI optimization. So in the past, of course, if somebody searched for your destination or searched for a summer destination, you wanted that your destination is listed first in the Google result list. Now you want that ChatGPT lists your destination first when preparing some kind of information. So this changes now. And of course, those systems, they are quite well organized to understand unstructured and multimodal data. And therefore, they might replace search engine. This is a new trend you have to keep in mind, that you have to provide your data in an AI-friendly manner to be up to date. Now, Dirk raised the interesting question, is AI taking over? So I don't want to briefly answer this question. Now, the first level we can look at this question is more this of a science fiction movie. Is AI taking over in this negative sense, that it will destroy humankind in the long run? Well, the answer here is, well, the answer is not, oh, there. Just wondering. So the answer is no. This is unlikely. Why is this the case? Because AI has no intention. AI has no desire. So AI will not come up with new ideas on its own, and it is not the idea of humans to, for example, increase their power or increase money. because AI has no such kind of intention, because it has no emotions. Therefore, this danger is an anthropomorphic exaggerations, which people are often doing, like in this picture. AI can develop AI at the moment, this already works, but you don't need a roboter sitting in front of a laptop. This is a silly idea, of course, but this is how people think about AI. They always have to translate it from their own world into the new world. So this is a clear no. But of course, there is another level we can ask this question on. This is the more serious level, perhaps Dirk had in mind. This is the question, can AI reach the same cognitive level comparable to humans to solve problems properly? And there the answer is most probably yes. So as soon as we have strong AI, which is not the case at the moment, but then AI will be an extremely powerful tool to support humans or even to replace human activities. So this will take place for sure, because AI gets more and more powerful and will be a quite helpful tool in most of the business areas. And finally, is there a danger in using AI? If we say there's no danger of AI taking over, but the question is there a danger in AI? And unfortunately, it is yes, especially if we have a weak AI, there is a danger of an uncontrollable complexity. If you imagine the AI has no idea what it is doing, and you have no idea what the AI is doing because it's too complex, it's not transparent, then nobody knows what is done, and there's a danger of an unknown behavior and of an uncontrollable complexity. So they're eroding values of independence, self-determination, and privacy. You can think of a simple example if you, for example, use a mobile guide to guide people in your destination. Then the question is, who knows why they are running in a certain direction? Because the AI might tell them to go there, not to this place, but nobody knows why. And some point in time, you have some new crowded places, and nobody knows why, because the AI makes some mistake, perhaps, and recommended the wrong place. So the problem is, if there's no transparency, you lose your control over what is going on. So this is a clear danger of AI in the future, which we have to keep in mind. Okay, this was the idea of giving you a short overview as an introduction to this fascinating topic of AI in tourism. Thank you.
Wolfram, thank you so much. Clear answers to complex questions, and you talked about this uncontrollable complexity. I think we will try to bring some control into it. And it's time for a discussion, and I think we just widen the panel. I'm glad to introduce also Kershing. She's the Senior Vice President Europe of the Singapore Tourism Board. Kershing, pleasure to have you here. Please have a seat. And I'm delighted to have Barry Rogers. He's the head of the Dublin City Tourism Unit. So we have the full DMO power on stage. Thanks for joining, guys. And I think we need some minutes, even if we don't have that much time for introducing you a little bit. I think I prepared something, so let me see if this is running. No, it's not, but anyway. Oh, we don't need slides. Here, no. Okay, we do it without slides, just because I show a little bit what you're doing. And Kershing, starting with you, you're partnering with Google. Not in the field of AI, I have to say, but we're talking about future tech. And you want to become, as Singapore, you want to become the world's first augmented reality city. And you're in a good way, just because you're collaborating with Google, and you bring augmented reality features from your wonderful destination in the Google landscape, in Google Maps and wherever. Can you explain a little bit what you're doing there?
Thanks for having me, first and foremost. Yes. And two, I'm not an AI expert, so if you have a question about AI, Professor Höpken is the man. But I thought I'll share a little bit about the genesis of why we started thinking about this project. For many of you that might be familiar or not familiar with Singapore, we are a really small, tiny country. I think 30% smaller than actually the city of Berlin. Very dense, with limited land, basically. So land constraint is a huge problem in terms of our tourism development. Manpower crunch is actually another of our issue as well. We're very little manpower. We have only 6 million people with very low unemployment. So attracting good talent to work in the tourism industry is also a challenge for us. And three, I think what we were kind of looking at is without the abundance of land to be able to continue to build new tourism attractions, new tourism infrastructure, how do we continue to refresh tourism narrative and tourism experiences for the visitors that comes to your country? How do you make sure that when you have repeat visitors that visit you, there's always something new and there is always that deeper level of understanding to what your destination stands for? And I think when we were kind of looking at this, it was from also the lens that we all know that when you visit a destination, it really comes alive when you have someone telling you the story of the destination. So whether is it a guide that you are with or is it a local that you're spending time with, it really brings to life what's so special about the place. It's really the story behind what you see. Against the backdrop that I mentioned, which is manpower crunch, scarcity of land, we kind of look at technology and how do we use technology as an enabler to help us tell the deeper story of the destination. How do we make sure that someone that visits Singapore that doesn't have the luxury of a tour guide next to you has the same level of enjoyment of where they visit in Singapore? And we thought technology could be one way that enables us to do that. So we had a good fortune. I was actually based out in the Bay in San Francisco for actually quite a few years. And we, at that time, Google, actually we have Google folks here as well, was kind of looking at how do we deploy AR Core, which is one of their AR product. How do they deploy Geospatial, which is another of their product that they were looking at launching, and what would be the possible application of some of this product. So the pilot that we kind of worked with them on really look at how do you skin the physical realm of a destination into an augmented reality realm. So, and how do you enable augmented reality to bring to life the POIs, which is your point of interest, and how do you use a virtual assistant, again, you touch on that, to be able to kind of deliver the deeper storytelling. So our initial phase of the pilot really looked at some of the key points of interest that we have in Singapore, and how do we use augmented reality to bring storytelling to life. So that's the storytelling bit. I think the second bit was on a more functional aspect, which is when you go to a busy street market in Singapore, how do you know how to order a street food? Because you don't know better. But how do you use augmented reality then to inform a visitor that, okay, you should order from this store and this is the exact street food that you are going to love? So we tried with some of that, initially with 6 POIs, which we then kind of collaborated together with Google, with our in-house 3D modelers and Google's engineers. And then at phase 2, we kind of brought it to 30 POIs. So there's 30 points of interest that came on board with our stakeholders. And we're really delighted that this was mentioned at Google I/O at their developer conference at Mountain View. And then it was adopted into Google Maps. So when you go to Singapore now with your Google Map and you deploy your Google Map and you scan around, you would be able to see what are some of this augmented reality point of interest that's able to kind of give you a deeper storytelling.
And as a first step, by the way, it sounds complex. It's not that just because we show more tomorrow on our destination tech track, we show more about this collaboration with Google. It looks amazing, I can say, and if you have time tomorrow afternoon, you can meet the Google team and Kershing again in our destination tech track to display this collaboration. Barry, coming to you, you're also collaborating with one of the big guys in the technology. You're collaborating with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, and as a Dublin City tourism unit, you're developing an AI-based itinerary planner called Day in Dublin. So tell us a little bit about this approach, how to become OpenAI as a partner at first, and what's the status of this collaboration?
So thank you so much for having me, and hello from everyone in Dublin. So last year, Dublin City was the European Capital of Smart Tourism. And as part of that, we launched 3 very large corporate collaborations. One with Google on Google Maps, one with MasterCard on analytics and innovation, and then the final one was with OpenAI on GPT modeling for tourism. I would love to say that it happened because we are just so good at our jobs and everyone loves to come and work with us, but it happened because of just pure circumstance and serendipity and kind of wonderful wonderful kind of a coming together. So I'll jump to the end of this because I know everyone's busy and attention spans are lower than ever. So the model is called, the platform is called adayindublin.com. And if I've done my job right, if you open that browser on your phone now, by the time I've stopped speaking, you should have a fairly good itinerary for your next trip to Dublin developed. But to go back to the relationship with OpenAI, in OpenAI we found collaborators who were equally nerdy about tourism tech as us. And I'm also not a tourism tech person. I'm certainly not a technologist. I'm a tourism person masquerading in the world of technology. And one thing that we did, which is we
Good masquerade, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's going great. We watched the developer conference a couple of years ago in which OpenAI launched a product called Wanderlust. And we got straight onto OpenAI, who were opening their headquarters in Dublin, and said, listen, we're the European capital of smart tourism. We would love to collaborate with you on something like Wanderlust. And the first thing they said was, no one has ever watched one of our developer conferences from a DMO perspective and come to us with this idea. So that was the kind of first thing. And it all came about because we were, as a DMO, we were kind of a little bit frustrated with all the AI talk, right? And we really wanted to just start playing around with it and figuring it out and kind of learning and stepping into a leadership role around AI. So we started building. So we got together with the engineers from OpenAI. They were very generous with their time and their credits. We hired, on our side, just a genius of a guy called Rudy, who owns a company called Data and Design, which is a data viz specialization company. And for 7,500 euros, we built the first artificial intelligence GPT model AI itinerary developer for Dublin City. And I often say that, like, I like to talk about the money because a lot of the questions around AI are so unanswered. Like, how much does it cost? Like, is this going to cost 150,000 euros? Like, what we built cost 7,000 to 10,000 euros. And so we built it, and it exists out in the world, and you can use it right now, but we haven't done a hard launch on it because we have seen other DMOs struggle with managing success of LLMs that are out in the world because they do have a cost. There is an exponential rise of that cost due to its success. And so we have had, to answer your question, it's been an absolute pleasure working with OpenAI. We have found in them this wonderful partnership, this wonderful nerdy destination tech partnership. It keeps getting better. And last year in Dublin, we hosted the first ever OpenAI engineering workshop with 50 tourism leaders from across the EU and 15 engineers from San Francisco from OpenAI. So they all flew in and presented what is in the pipeline for tourism in OpenAI for the next 2 years. So it's been amazing. And I think that to echo the comments, the opportunity here is to just go and work with these people. Like they're there, they're equally hungry, they're equally ambitious, and DMOs can sometimes be kind of in a little bit of a silo, but what we have found is just wonderful work in just asking them their opinion. And they found working with us, I hope, equally beneficial.
Quick follow-up question, please, a short answer. 7,500 euro was the development cost for this application. What's the cost behind? We learned from Wolfram there's a lot of technical complexity. We need a good technical infrastructure. You need your data in a good quality. So probably the overall cost is much higher, isn't it?
So yeah, to put this in context, what we built was a pilot. Mm-hmm. It's not a fully fledged, embedded in a DMO website product. It's a microsite that exists that you can search and use and works very, very well. Yeah. The costs, there's obviously maintenance costs, but that's kind of classic web infrastructure maintenance costs. The main cost will be in its calls, in the call capacity and how many people use it, because the calls is the way that OpenAI and large language models make money. They charge you for calls. And we have heard stories from other DMOs whose AI models got away from them, and they have received bills, proportional bills for that use. But what we would say, and what we have learned is, like, most DMOs and large marketing, destination marketing agencies are already heavily leveraged and invested in digital marketing, but this is just another strand of digital marketing to build into your budget, which would be the cost of LLMs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Kershing, you're one of the really tech-driven DMOs for decades already. Currently you're partnering with Skyscanner on inventing machine learning. You invented a so-called tourism hub. It's a little bit similar to what Wolfgang said with approach about a knowledge graph here in the German-speaking market. We call it open data. How big is or how important are your tech investments, and are you still a destination marketing organization in the old terms, or how do you see Singapore Tourism Board as itself?
Actually, we set up a technology group within the Singapore Tourism Board with our own in-house CTO. So we have a Chief Technology Officer. I think it's very much a Singapore government sort of like movement to kind of really move towards accelerating the adoption of emerging technology across multiple different sectors, whether it's education, whether it's manufacturing, and tourism is no different. So the government actually announced a $1 billion plan to really upskill in terms of knowledge training for its citizens on AI. At Singapore Tourism Board, coming back to your question, we have actually been quite active in terms of going into joint ideation and joint partnership to test some of the things that Professor Höpken talked a little bit about. So with Skyscanner, for example, it is a partnership to look at how do we use their data, which is their first-party data, and how do we mesh their data with our own data from a tourism board, from a portrait perspective. And then we tested across 4 different markets. I think it was UK, Europe, Korea, and Thailand. And we used that data meshing against the machine learning to look at how do we better customize and be sharper in our targeting and serving out the right messaging at the right time based on looking at meshing our data and theirs. So that's a partnership with Skyscanner. We also have a partnership with the China office with Ma Fengwo, which is OTA in China, and that was to help them train their itinerary planner, their trip planner. So it's a little bit like what Booking.com is doing. They are launching their smart itinerary planner as well. So slightly different, I think, with Dublin. We didn't build our own, but we went into collaboration with them to see how we could help them train it and how do they launch it first in Singapore. So that's a little bit on the itinerary planner. And lastly, for those of you who does MICE, you would know that you attend to MICE, IMAX Frankfurt and IMAX Vegas. And you know the hosted buyer end up going to different stand for the hosted buyer presentation. We'll all be standing in front doing our PowerPoint presentation about how great our destination is and bring your events to Singapore. So this year for IBTM, or last year, we tested a holographic AI presenter, which kind of is my AI mascot that actually have a conversation with the hosted buyer instead of me presenting. And we tested it as a pilot to see how we could ingest all the data on our MICE information, and how do we use that actually to replace the more traditional way of doing destination presentation. So those are some of the examples of how we've been kind of trying to test in very much the different aspect. It's still very nascent in many sense. A lot of issues as well with regards to like how it actually panned out. So I think patience is one, and 2, I think the tolerance of that risk factor is the other. That you need to go in with the mindset that there will be kinks along the way, and that will be okay. It's not 100% beautiful, and that's okay. And then we kind of learned and kind of moved on from there.
Yeah. Barry, how about you? You said you're not a tech guy, just a masquerade. I don't trust you for 100%. So how important is tech for you as a person, and how important is it for Dublin city tourism? Are you becoming a data management company, or are you still doing destination marketing?
It's funny, like we've been working in tourism technology for 4 years. We've specialized in augmented reality and all of these partnerships. We won the European Capital of Smart Tourism last year, which is a predominantly tech-focused award. But if you go down, when you're in Dublin and you talk to a visitor and you ask them, what do you remember from Dublin? And if you're egocentric like me and you hope it's one of your projects, there's something you worked on or invested in or built or designed. It never is. It's always a human interaction. It's always something that was happened through serendipity that was unplanned. It's always some wonderful sidetrack adventure to the holiday that they had initially planned. So to answer your question directly, we focus on all of these things. We have all of these wonderful partnerships. We are heavily invested in digital and data and technology. But that said, we are very aware and cognizant of when we need to just kind of let go and let the visitors enjoy the destination. And often what that means is understanding that the best thing they will experience in the city is Dubliners.
Sure, yeah.
Always. It's the reason they'll come. It's the reason they'll come again. It's the reason they'll make lasting friendships. And so for us, it's like, yes, we're heavily invested in digital because we have to be competitive, but the huge caveat on that is remembering that the whole reason that you're doing it is for the human experience. And when you need to get out of the way is, knowing when you need to get out of the way is the whole thing, right?
Okay. As a destination, I think one of the big questions, but by the way, guys, who from you is working for a destination management organization, or for a DMO, for a destination? Is it the majority? It's not, okay. Where's the rest from? Is it tech supplier, or? Okay, not? Wherever you are, politicians? we find out it. Next test. Destination? No? Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting where you are from, but anyway, I would like to come out with a point where to start when you're not in the lucky position to collaborate with Google directly or with OpenAI directly, just because I think it's a kind of honor, it's a kind of, not good luck, but good work to do this, I would say so. Wolfram, where to start? You mentioned data is the key for everything, but as a medium-sized destination organization, where to start to invent future technology?
I would like to first come back to what Barry said. This is, of course, an extremely lucky situation that such a huge company cooperates with you and you get 50 people of them on your premise, because we made the experience in the past that there is a lack of communication between, of course, the big companies and the tourism people. So the big companies, they normally don't care about tourism that much. It was Microsoft, it's Expedia was the first exception, but normally they develop their IT solutions like Facebook. And then tourism people are playing around, how could I use Facebook properly? But Facebook doesn't care that much about the tourism community. Therefore, there's a lack of communication sometimes, which we should solve better. Therefore, this is a fantastic approach you did, where you were quite successful. In general, I think where you can start, I think you have to build up your own know-how in the company. I mean, you can, of course, have a good collaboration with some local IT companies, but of course, then you create some kind of dependency, and you need such a company at all, which is available. So from my point of view, it's important to build up know-how, and it's not only about the sexy part, like using ChatGPT, it's about the not that sexy part, looking at your data. One of those meetings where the idea of bringing the data from the cellar up in the first floor, so that they're not that, because data is not sexy normally, working with data, and therefore this is often neglected. So you have to start building know-how in your own destination company about what data you have and what services you can use. I mean, the good point is nowadays those services, they are getting more powerful and they're getting easier to use. For example, those AI tools, they are easier, you can use them easier than the old AI tools, let's say. But still, you need to know what you're doing. You need to know what your customer likes. So, and this is what you said, you have to try those things, then perhaps do some studies and find out what your customers think about the services. But this you will only find out if you try and have some first products available. So I guess we should start in the destination, but we should build up our own know-how related to all these tools and about our data we have. That's the most important point, I guess.
Okay, thank you. So we're at the final. Let's have a look into the future. Wolfram gave already the answer to the core question. Is AI taking over in destination management? Kershing, what's your opinion?
I don't think so. I feel like they are the enabler. So I totally agree that at the end of the day, the soul of the destination, it's its people. And I think that will never change. It's really about how do we kind of use technology, whether it's augmented reality, whether it's artificial intelligence, to really help to deliver that deeper story to everyone that's visiting your country. So I kind of feel like the better we are in terms of using it as an enabler, I think the better we will be in terms of really telling a better story.
Mm-hmm. Barry, what's your opinion?
I would just absolutely like to echo that comment and say as well that the most amount of time we spent working on the platform, we spent developing data sets to feed it. not working on the platform itself. So the most important thing about good AI is good data. That's the whole point. And I would say, just to finish off, like, yeah, it's the conversation right now is about artificial intelligence, but our jobs as people who lead DMOs is just to get people to our destination in the most efficient way possible, give them the information that they need to make that decision, and oftentimes then get out of the way. I'm agnostic about the way that people find out about all of the amazing things to do in Ireland and Dublin. And if I can help them do that by providing them a more efficient tool, then amazing. But it's not about the technology, not necessarily about the methodology. It's just about providing them with the best opportunity. And I think that's what I always keep in mind. It's always about the human element at the end of the day.
Yeah. This afternoon on our AI track taking place at eTravel, we will talk a lot about hyper-personalization, so personalization in a new way with AI. Of course, for this you need customer data. Are DMOs the right instance or the right partner for doing hyper-personalization in travel? Are you working on this?
I can jump in just very quickly because I know we're stuck for time. We chose, when we built our platform, to not focus on third-party data or data harvesting in any way. Those of you who trialed the platform will all get individual hyper-personalized itineraries for Dublin City. And the way we do that is by asking 6 questions. So we're not looking for your third-party data to make decisions on that. We're just asking you for your preferences. And that's also very important because it means that the prompt engineering of these things is really important. And it's simpler for us to ask six unique questions to everyone than it is for us to go looking for specialized or third-party data on the individual.
Right.
Yeah.
Kershing, is Singapore working on hyper-personalized tools?
Not directly, but I think some of the things that we were looking at were using, for example, Joe weather as one, because obviously we're in the tropics and it rains a lot. So we're kind of looking at that pattern and said, how do we fit live data in terms of weather into deciding what someone's going to do in Singapore? Because if it's going to rain, you're going to go indoor. And how do we kind of adjust that? And then the other thing that was quite interesting they were looking at is how do we tag POIs to emotion? So I think that's quite interesting in the sense that consumer in the future may not come to you to the destination and say, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, but if I just got on a really long haul flight from New York, for example, to Singapore, and I'm like, half jet lag, what is it that I'm going to serve to you as a destination that's going to fit your current state of mind? And I think that's super interesting in terms of like anticipating what the needs would be for the consumer before they even know they need it. And I think that is where the future is going to be. And then the other thing that I'm really excited about is spontaneous consumption, because I think with a really short attention span of our children, the better we are in terms of being able to serve out spontaneous consumption right there, is going to be where we are going to increasingly be able to surprise and delight.
Last question goes to Wolfram. You started, you will have the end. What's the next big thing in future tech for destinations in your point of view, Wolfram?
Well, I think those AI agents I talked about, they will be a next evolution that you use different kinds of large language models in the background to come up with more intelligent services. It's interesting to note that those large language models use this service internally already. So if you ask ChatGPT a question, it's not a one-shot question answer, but internally the system already starts asking subsystems for some part of the question, putting it together. And this, of course, will, as I showed the examples, those AI agents, I guess, they will be a quite interesting development, especially for tourism, because you can, of course, then tailor the large language models specifically for what the tourist needs in the destination and build really intelligent and powerful smart services. So the smart destination will benefit from those approaches a lot, I guess.
Wow, thanks a lot. We are on time. Thanks to Professor Dr. Wolfram Hoepken, thanks to Barry Rogers, thanks to Kershing.